and welcome back to Constellation Station. Today we're going to talk about a very special kind of constellation because so far we've been talking about a lot of constellations that are from the sort of Western mythology. I talk about that a lot, about Zeus and about all of the gods in ancient Greece and how the constellations connect to the myths about people in that time. But today we're going to talk about a different kind of mythology. We're going to talk about Native American mythology. So today the constellation that we have is a constellation called Thunderbird. And actually Thunderbird is a lot of different constellations. So we're going to focus on one Thunderbird constellation today. And we'll talk a little bit about the significance of the Thunderbird mythology. I also am using a sort of different kind of material today. Normally, I connect the dots using sort of fun ways. We've used straws, we've used pipe cleaners, we've used string and clothesline. We've used a lot of things to connect the dots of our constellations. But today we're going to use, for our stars, something different. I decided to bring nature inside today. So we had a fun constellation inspiration yesterday posted by one of our followers. Where he said that the leaves around the observatory kind of look like stars. So I decided to go out and find some leaves and make them our stars. I put them on this white paper so you could see them a little bit better. And we have them sort of spread out here in the pattern we normally do our stars. And then we're going to connect the dot using a special kind of tape today. So I want to remind us what we do here at the Constellation Station before we get started. So the Constellation Station is by the Cincinnati Observatory, and I'm an educator there. I'm Nicole. And at the Constellation Station, we like to learn a little bit about constellations. We like to figure out where we can find constellations out in the night sky. And we like to learn a little bit about how we can make constellations in our own home. Like I said, today we're kind of using some funky materials to make our constellation. So if you have found any fun ways to make constellations, please let us know and hashtag Constellation Station in your Instagram or Facebook posts. So let's go ahead and connect the dots of our constellation. I said this is supposed to be Thunderbird, so I want you to imagine a bird sort of diving down, downwards, like it's coming down from the sky. So we're going to start by connecting sort of top part of our Thunderbird, working on the wings at the top. So we're going to start the bottom. Today I'm using fun glitter tape that I found at the store to connect our constellation together. So our first two stars connected. We have a lot bigger line for our next two stars to connect the dots. And then we have our last bit of our constellation here at the top. So far we've connected a kind of top wing. So again, think of it diving down, of this bird diving down, like it's diving down and trying to get fish from maybe the ocean or a river. Next we're going to do the sort of the main body of the bird. We have coming up from the bottom, think of this as kind of the nose or the beak of the bird. And then finally we have to do our other set of wings here. And hopefully you are using your imagination right now to picture this Thunderbird. Remember, our imaginations are really our most important tool when we talk about constellations, because just like connect the dot pictures that we make maybe growing up, those pictures don't really look like what they're supposed to be if you connect the dots of an animal or a person, but if we use our imaginations, we can see it as the bigger picture. So here we have our Thunderbird diving down through the sky. And you can find this constellation in about the northeastern sky. Now remember I said this is a Native American constellation, but even the Native Americans found things like the Big Dipper in the sky and still made it into a Big Dipper shape. So I want you to think about what you learned from our episode about the Big Dipper and how it points towards the star Polaris. If you can find the Big Dipper. And remember, it's dumping its stuff out. It's like an upside down spoon right now in the sky. If you can find the Big Dipper in the northern northeastern sky and find that arrow that the Big Dipper points towards Polaris, this constellation is right next to Polaris. So it's in the northeastern sky, and if you can find it maybe around 9:45, 10 o'clock at night. So picture Polaris as being somewhere over here, maybe around where this blue star is over here, and our constellation Thunderbird is right next to it. So I want you to picture that, and that's probably how our Native American friends would have found this back in the day as well. They would have looked up at the Big Dipper, saw it pointing at Polaris, and then find Thunderbird right next door, right next to it, up in the night sky. So I want to talk a little bit about our Thunderbird mythology and Native American mythology in general. So I've talked about a lot of things in Greek mythology. If you remember, our very first constellation we talked about was Orion. And remember, Orion was a mighty hunter with his sword and his shield in front of him like this. And Orion has been actually a main feature of a lot of our constellations. He's a kind of main character. Native Americans also have some main characters in their stories, but for them, instead of using people like Orion, they use a lot of animals. They actually see nature and animals as being such an integral part of their lives, of their stories, that they play a lot of the main characters in all these stories. So Thunderbird is actually like one of the main characters in their mythology. He's kind of like, if you've ever heard of one of the gods, Zeus. Zeus is supposed to be the most powerful Greek god. And that's kind of Thunderbird in these stories. Just like Zeus, you may have heard, has a lightning bolt that he uses as his power. Thunderbird there's a lot of stories about Thunderbird have him controlling things like the weather and the lightning and the thunder. And he would control something that they call the overworld. So thinking of the sky. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because birds are in the sky. So of course they're going to have the Thunderbird in the sky. So our Thunderbird represents a lot of power in the sky. So maybe if they had bad weather one day, they would look up to their Thunderbird and say, please, please, please give us better weather. And so it was all a part of their mythology, looking towards nature and the sky. So I hope you learned a little bit about Native American mythology today as well. I really recommend that you go out and look for other mythology based on other cultures than just Greek mythology. Maybe you have a culture that you know of that has some cool mythology and you want to see us do that constellation on Constellation Station. Definitely reach out and we would be happy to cover that in one of our episodes. So just a reminder, if you have any constellations that you want to share with us, if you find a constellation out in the night sky, you can share it to us on Instagram or on Facebook. You can find us at Cincinnati Observatory on either one. And just remember to hashtag Constellation Station, and we'll keep doing these live episodes for you guys every Thursday on Instagram Live. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next Thursday.